let's jump into the show now that we've wasted 5 minutes on BS. Let's get into some more BS. Talking season definitely here. We're not breaking any news here with the Thomas Castellanos tweet, which has certainly made the rounds. Thankfully, Phil Steele took a little bit of heat off of old Tommy C with his mishap. But comes out this week and says that Alabama can't stop him, doesn't think they can stop him, and throws Saban into it, which I did like this part of this. And I did a video on this solo, so I want to get you guys' thoughts and let's talk around it. But, is there anything redeeming about this, or was this just the absolute worst move that he could make? I don't even care who goes first here, but let's talk Tommy C talking crap about Alabama.
Well, as the Alabama grad and as the SEC representative, I gladly will talk about this. I love the confidence level. I do. And you know what? I appreciate that, because of when you're a team that goes 2-10 last year and you know that your back is against the wall, the best way to rally the troops is to put yourself on front and center stage and say, we don't care what the outside noise is saying. We don't care what people are talking about. We understand that this is all about the bulletin board material, so let's give them a show. Let's make sure that we show up on Saturday in our stadium, in our backyard, with our fan base, with the garnet and gold blazing on down. We know that we're good enough. You say that in the locker room. You say that during reps. You say that during workouts. You don't say that on an interview after going 2-10 as a quarterback that last season could have cut it out with Bill O'Brien's roster and was eventually benched after having a pretty stellar game against Missouri. So let's start there. The other thing that's really important with this, and this is where I have a major issue. If you go back and you read the entire interview, Thomas Castellanos does not represent all of Florida State. And it's evident by the way he was talking in that interview. Because there wasn't a lot of we's. There wasn't a lot of conversations about us and what our identity is going to be or what this program is striving for this year. There was I'm going to come in here and save a lot of jobs. I'm going to come in here and no one's going to be able to stop me. I'm going to come in here and make sure that Alabama knows who I am. You do realize that you're not speaking for the rest of Florida State. A Florida State team that didn't finish top 20 in recruiting this past year. A Florida State team that once again is banking on the transfer portal for a lot of their players to hit. Oh, and a Florida State team that has a ton of turnover when it comes to roster construction and coaching staff. It's no longer Alex Atkins and your defensive coordinator. You now bring in Tony White and you bring in Gus Malzahn, which hopefully are going to be upgrades from what you saw last season, because it can't get much worse than 2-10, and your only real significant win is coming against Charleston Southern. But the bottom line is that you have now put a target on all of Florida State's back. Florida State could have gone into this game against Alabama and lost by 3. Ty Simpson and Thomas Castellanos could have balled on out, and you would have left saying, you know what? Florida State is better than advertised. Alabama may have a shot of playing for a national championship, but Florida State's going to upset someone's season. Now the conversation turns to, Thomas Castellanos said that nobody could stop him, nobody could beat him, nobody could slow him down, and they proceeded to lose to Alabama, even though this is a Florida State team. Thomas Castellanos has got to ball on out, he has got to play near perfect football, and he has got to show why he can back the claim. I'm all for talking mad smack internally inside the locker room, because you want to make sure that your team is rallied around you. But the second that you throw it out there, you have now made yourself public enemy number 1. And I can only imagine that Kane Womack is channeling his inner Coach Yost and saying, I don't want them to gain another yard. You blitz all night on a quarterback that is known for running and a quarterback that is known for using his legs as a massive standpoint towards his success.
TJ, remind me, what was the quote he said about Saban?
He said Saban can't save them, which I will say, I'll let Tom go now, but I did like that. Like, I did like the subtle shot. I thought that was good. I mean, does it work out for them? We find out in 2 months and 5 days. But I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was a good. That was a good jest, I thought.
It's a good jab. Again, I agree with Cole. I like the confidence. I hate that he said it out loud into a microphone. I don't know how Pete Nakos all of a sudden became the Taylor Rooks of college football interviews, like just sitting down with Jaylen Brown. Taylor Rooks gets, I'm going to win 6 championships here in Boston. It's just incredible what old Nakos can do there at On3, but congratulations to him. So you take a shot at Saban. And it's like, Kalen DeBoer is not a bad coach, by the way. He was literally just in the national championship a little over a year ago. So, like, let's give him some credit. This gets even funnier because of what he said, continued in that interview. Quote, I feel like I tore the ACC up by my damn self for the last 2 years, and now I'm with a squad. So I like the confidence he has in his team. His own former teammate at Boston College, Cameron Martinez, quote tweeted this and said, that ain't how I remember it. So it's like you're getting buried by your old team. And let's also take a minute to look at some of his statistics. By the way, started his career at UCF, transfers to Boston College. 2023, I will give him his flowers. He had a nice season. Poor completion percentage, of course, 57.3, but over 2,200 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, not great, but over 1,000 yards rushing, 13 touchdowns on the ground. Okay. Last season, 2024, where he tore up the ACC to the point that Cole said, he got benched. 1,300 yards passing, 61% completion percentage. That came up. 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, 194 rushing yards, and just 1 rushing touchdown. That doesn't sound like you tore up anything other than the bench this past season. I'm very much about bulletin board material. I think it's great. We were talking about this before we came on here, is that South Carolina quarterback Lenora Sellers was just on the Zach Gelb show. Zach's a friend of mine, friend of Cole's, so love Zach. And Lenora Sellers was like, Alabama's still Alabama. Kind of like, I'm not going to step in the bear trap on this one because he's not an idiot. This is one of the dumber things you could say. And I do look forward to when we can reflect, maybe 5-10 years from now and look at the string of transfer portal quarterbacks that have been acquired by different schools to go from DJU to Tommy Castellanos.
Tommy now, because he's no longer Thomas.
He's Tommy. Yeah. From
name.
One Thomas to another. Shut up, dude. Shut up and play. You have said some profoundly stupid things. Your own former teammates are burying you on social media. You might run into a buzzsaw on August 30th against Alabama. It's great that it's at home. That could help you a little bit. But boy, did you just give bulletin board material to a team that has something to prove in 2025 in Alabama. And it's that time of the year when football players at every level are like, I'm ready to put the pads on again. I'm ready to hit somebody. Training camp's a month away. Best of luck, Tommy.
Can I also just say really fast that everyone uses Diego Pavia as like a selling point of, hey, he can smack talk Alabama, so everyone can smack talk Alabama. Diego Pavia beat the number 1 team in the country in a stadium that wasn't fully constructed and then went on a tirade of saying, I'm going to beat everyone to oblivion. And the meme that has gone around surrounding DP right now is him standing on a podium, pouring the champagne on himself while Vanderbilt sits in 9th place. Tommy C, you haven't beaten anybody yet. You didn't even beat Missouri last year in overtime. Like, slow your roll before you start going and putting Florida State, a 2-10 team, on this rack of just pure firing squad. Oh, and here's the other thing. It's not going to be in October when maybe an injury happens to Alabama and you're like, oh, well, they were down a man, so it's okay that they were able to go and make this a close call. Everyone's going to be at full strength, dude, and they're gunning right for your head. So best of luck to you on that one, my friend.
So as the resident Florida State guy, here we go.
Yeah, let's hear your side.
I can't believe he put me in this. I really can't believe he put me in this situation to have to do this. I would not have said this, right? Like there's no doubt. I completely agree that it was not a good thing to say. And I do also agree. I like the confidence internally. I have no problem with him thinking this. I have no problem with Florida State's, 100-man roster thinking they're going to win this game, whether they do or don't. I will say, I think that it's relatively low risk, high reward. I think Florida State's already, for the last 18 months, been kind of the biggest joke of college football, unfortunately for myself. And so, like, what's one more thing added on, right? Like, what if they lose, which they probably will, per Vegas and anyone really picking this game, they probably will lose. If they lose, this quote will get shared a billion times. And then we'll get to Tuesday, and it'll be about who everybody plays the next week, right? Like, this is not that big of a deal, in my opinion, right? Now, I preface that by saying I would not have said this. I would have preferred for him not to say this. I don't think it's that big of a deal, and I think we'll move on from it relatively quickly, especially if Florida State is able to go out and win a couple of games that maybe they shouldn't, Bama game excluded. Even if they lose this game and then maybe they upset Miami or maybe they play well against Florida, who knows, right? If they just win the games they're supposed to win and beat their win total and get to 8 wins instead of the 7.5 that they're projected. People, I don't think you get to November and they're like, man, remember what he said about it? I think it's just, yeah, that's it, right? It happened, whatever. So relatively low risk, high reward. I also don't know that I buy too much into this impacting the game. I think Bama had kind of a lot to prove going into it. I don't think that on 4th and 1, Florida State down 4 with a minute to go, I don't think it's like, oh, well, now let's kick it up because of what he said to Nakos. You know, like I do think bulletin board material probably gets overblown a little bit. Again, would I have preferred him not to say it? Yes. Do I think it's dumb? Probably. Do I think it impacts the game or has any kind of staying power? No. If they win, or if he goes off and they lose by 3 and he has 300 yards combined passing and throwing. Yeah, maybe that's the best question because we all kind of expect one of two things happens, right? Like Florida State either gets blown out or maybe they do win a close game. But if he goes off and has a really good game and they just lose by 3 or 4, right? Make it a 1-score game. How do we look at it then, right? If they really don't stop him, which they have struggled with running quarterbacks very recently.
Yeah.
I think there's a decent chance that Florida State loses this game within the spread, less than 10. And he has a nice day, and they're just not good enough to win. How do we look at the quote then, right? Do we look at, I'd still say you probably shouldn't have said it, but if he goes out there and backs it up, he didn't come out and say, we're going to beat Bama by 30. He said, they can't stop me. I think within that context, you kind of look at it and say, okay, well, maybe there's some optimism. Maybe they really were right there with Bama and lost a close game, and maybe that projects them out to play a little bit better through the year. Overall, I think it's probably dumb to say. It's probably at the same time also overblown because it's Florida State. Like, who cares? They're already the biggest joke in college football for the last 12 months. Who gives a crap, right? So I don't know. That's my take on it. It's probably not as big of a deal as we make it. It's probably still not smart to say, but what's the worst case that happens? You lose by a lot and you get a few more jokes thrown at you until about Tuesday or Wednesday, and then we're on to the next week. So yeah. I don't know. It's probably too reasonable to take for social media, but that's kind of how I see it.
I think it's reasonable. Hunter is a great comment here in our comment section saying bulletin board material is only good for the first possession. He's accurate in that those first couple of drives, everybody's real juiced up and anything personal is probably going to come out there and you see how a game progresses. Maybe it gets even worse, but like if he pulls this off, he's Nostradamus. If he loses and then he follows up with an equally dumb comment, then it gets even worse and it snowballs from there. My hope is Mike Norvell has a little powwow with him and be like, hey bud, as I was saying at the top of the show, shut the F up. Just get ready for training camp, do all the stuff you got to do, and just play a tough game. Because you're right. If they lose the game and he handles it with class after the fact, it's forgotten. But I forget who said it, but the recommendation is don't be the star of the internet at any given time. And this week, he's the star of the internet because he said something stupid. So
less than a month from now, Florida State is in Charlotte for the ACC kickoff. And my hope is that he kind of doubles down on this and says, you know what, I'm going to beat Miami's ass too. You know what, Mario, bring that crap up here. Like, if you're going to dive into the pool, dive into the pool. You know what, Napier, end of the year, we're coming to the swamp. And, Cade Klubnik, you think you're QB1? I'll get drafted ahead of you. Just go all the way with this.
So, as the Alabama grad and as the SEC resident, I will hold nothing against him because if I love college football and if Thomas Castellanos balls out in this game, it's good for college football because if he did back it, but I am going to hold you to that level of, well, Nick Saban can't save them. You're right, Nick Saban can't, but Kalen DeBoer, the guy that did lead his team to a national title less than 2 years ago with Washington, yeah, he kind of did, and he shut you up. So I'm going to make sure that you remember that Alabama hasn't disappeared entirely, whether or not you play well or not. You can't throw out that line and then expect me not to bring up later on. Nick Saban can't save us. You're right. The guy that replaced him and the guy that people are kind of sleeping on right now actually did instead.
Here's a good question. And I truly don't know the answer to this, so I'm just lobbing it up to you guys. Do more people want to see Florida State and Thomas Castellanos fail on this prediction or be right? Like, has Thomas Castellanos pushed more people to cheering for the evil empire, or will, SEC fans may be excluded because of that weird relationship they have cheering for their own conference? But the majority of college football, would they like to see Castellanos be right on this and take Bama down, or would they like to see Castellanos be wrong and in thus doing have to cheer for Alabama, which most people don't like to do? Most people would rather see Alabama lose any given Saturday, right? Outside of, Florida fans, Florida State, Miami fans, things like that. Thoughts on that?
I think that Florida State, they would love to see win with a quarterback that didn't get the same amount of respect when he was coming out of high school, that had to kind of prove his way through the minor stakes and push his narrative all the way up to where he got an offer to play at an ACC school. Similar to Diego Pavia, who went in last season to Jordan-Hare Stadium and beat Auburn with New Mexico State before joining Vanderbilt and then beating Alabama. The problem is that Thomas Castellanos said a lot of I's in that interview. A lot of, I'm here to save the program. I'm here to save jobs. You can't stop me. You were benched at Boston College by Bill O'Brien, who had a Heisman quarterback and couldn't win a national title with him. He saw you and said, nah, dude, not my cup of tea. Sit down and shut up. That's where you lose me. I think that's where you lose a lot of people. If this was a Diego Pavia type story that came from a junior college that went to a Conference USA school, balled on out, and then went to Florida State, maybe you feel a little bit differently. But this is a dude that couldn't beat Missouri last season. This is a dude that got benched by a coach that people still make fun of in the NFL. Like, that's what you have as your starting quarterback. That's where you're at when it comes. And I think that a lot of people are siding with Bama on that.
As a Penn State grad, I cite 2012, what Bill O'Brien did with Matt McGloin, and he benched Thomas Castellanos, who arguably has far more gifts, far more physical gifts. So, no, to the point you're saying, TJ, in terms of like eyeballs and news, absolutely, if Florida State upsets Alabama in week 0, whatever it is, that is a far bigger story, because then you can roll that momentum forward. So that's better for the talking points, the talking heads, us, of course, ratings, that sort of thing. If that's actually Thomas Castellanos winning that game, do more people want to see Alabama smash him because he said something stupid, or do more people want to see the upset? I think people lend towards the upset. I don't know if it's necessarily because it's Florida State, that sort of thing. You're going to have that support, but this is a bigger story long term if Florida State is relevant in 2025. Them being irrelevant is obviously not going to draw any eyeballs.
Speak for yourself. Do you really think that as an Alabama person in the SEC, I want to see Kalen DeBoer in year 1 start off 0-1 and then?
Oh no, I'm saying the driving force of the overall audience, because it's not all Florida State fans, it's not all Alabama fans. Most people that tune in for that game, because it'll be one of the biggest games to start off that weekend, the average fan would be like, yeah, if he pulls this off, then Florida State is somebody that's in the conversation for a number of weeks after the fact. If they just get smoked and dog walked, then story's over the second the game's over. You know what I mean?
Here's the part that's going to make me really sad. They're going to beat Alabama and then lose to Virginia 3 weeks later.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be the storyline that's now happening this year.
Okay, let me give Tommy C a little bit of credit. I think that on the Bill O'Brien stuff, he was in an impossible situation to where Bill O'Brien did not utilize him very well. I know he got benched. I think that had less to do with his play and more to do with O'Brien's system.
Sure.
I'll give him a little grace there. He was putting up okay numbers, right? They were okay. I think he tried to force a round peg into a square hole. Is that the right, cliche or whatever?
He tried to force a mobile quarterback into a passing system. That's what he did.
So I'll give him a little grace there. Let me defend my guy and have a little bit of confidence that we can at least cover the spread.
You know what? As somebody who cannot stomach the man that decided to ruin the Houston Texans, I will also give you a little bit of grace. Not much. I'll give you a little bit. She decided to ruin Alabama football at the same time.
I'm not saying Castellanos is top 5 in the ACC or anything like that, but I do think there's a chance that I'll blame O'Brien a little bit while I live in delusion. that he's going to be great for us.
Oh, and
All
by
right.
the way, he brought in Dylan Lonergan as his starting quarterback. So again, I guess we're all tied in Boston College. That's the scraps of the Tuscaloosa Tide.
Castellanos pretty good in Tallahassee too. So maybe he's got more comfortability playing in that stadium. He was one of the better quarterbacks to play in that stadium last year.